Tucked away in a Hampton, Virginia neighborhood is a historic cemetery. It could be the first African cemetery in what would become America, and if so, would hold special meaning. William Tucker, the first African baby baptized in English North America, may be buried here.
We did discover that we were from the Angola region, and a very strong percentage of that. So it validates what we have always thought.
DNA testing has confirmed these Tuckers are descendants from Angola, the birthplace of Anthony and Isabella. Their son, William, named after his plantation owner, was born in Virginia in 1624. His parents are two of the first documented Africans to arrive in the New World aboard the ship, the White Lion.
We found over 100 unmarked graves. Everywhere you see a white stone is where the ground penetrating X-ray identified a grave site. So we don't know how old. What we do know is that this was long before a lot of the markers that we have out here today.
Few details are known about William Tucker's life.
There were so many captured and put on the slave ships. So many did not survive, but those that did survive, we are the healthy ones, our ancestors. It is the sacred ground for us. And so there's no way we can pass it or walk through it without thinking of an ancestor to whom we owe gratitude and to whom we are endeared.
In Newport, Rhode Island, historian Keith Stokes is leading efforts to preserve this colonial African burial ground called God's Little Acre.
So as early as 1650, Newport had a burial place where anyone, regardless of race or class or ethnicity, could be buried. By 1705, the northwest section of this burying ground, we're starting to see enslaved Africans buried there. And over the next 100 years, hundreds and hundreds of markers and hundreds of burials are being made at that burying ground. We believe there were at least 3,000 burials during the life cycle of that burying ground.
Stokes and his family are descendants of some of the first Africans brought to the New World aboard the Seaflower, the first documented slave ship to arrive in Rhode Island in 1696.
My own family is buried here, but more importantly, it's a sense of African identity. I mean, this is a place where men and women of African descent actually lived in this community and were buried here, and it gives me a direct connectivity to the history of my own community.
Today, less than 300 grave markers of early Africans and later African Americans have survived in this cemetery. Stokes is trying to preserve those remaining while chronicling fascinating life stories of people like Dutchess Camino.
She's enslaved in the household of William Ellery Channing. William Ellery Channing grows up to become one of the early founders of the Unitarian Church in America. William Ellery Channing talks about the fact that his abolition of slavery comes from growing up and being cared for by this Dutchess Camino. He actually etches on her marker her epitaph, which says she's one of the most pious, industrious black women. But most importantly, Dutchess Camino wins her freedom by selling pastry cakes in Newport. She later becomes the pastry queen of Rhode Island and becomes quite wealthy. And she purchases the freedom of herself and her remaining children.
Stokes is not the only one trying to save hallowed ground. In Hampton, the Tuckers received a state grant to maintain this 2-acre site immersed in 400 years of history.
We exist because they worked hard, they struggled. They did whatever they had to do to survive.
I'm proud that we as a society and family have joined together to take care of it. It's been a lot of work. It's not just us being proud, but we want to share this with everyone so that everyone knows a part of their history.
The historical value of this cemetery is now becoming well known in the community. And for the Tuckers, it's a place where people can learn about how their ancestors and descendants not only survived, but endured. Chris Simkins, VOA News, Hampton, Virginia.